did the Israelites decide to spy out the promised land that God already told them they would have? And what does this have to do with trust? In the lesson today, I want to talk about 3 things that we can learn about how we can grow in our trust with God and how these 2 things were connected for the Israelites and the promised land. Why trust in God? You see, without trust in God and it manifesting itself in ways that we can actually see, we simply have religion. You can go to church and read your Bible and pray and do all these things, but without trusting Yahweh, without trusting in God with all your life, it really means nothing, doesn't it? Well, let's look at what we can learn from this story, starting in this picture. As you can see, when they came back with the fruit after the searching out the promised land. What happens when we fail to trust God? Let's start in Numbers 13, 1 through 3. It says here that Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, "Send men to spy out the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the people of Israel, from each tribe of their fathers. You shall send a man, every one a chief among them." So Moses sent them from the wilderness of Paran, according to the command of Yahweh, all of the men who were heads of the people of Israel. So why did they spy out the land? Well, according to this text, isn't it pretty clear? It says in the beginning that Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, "Send men out to spy out the land." Wasn't it a commandment from Yahweh? He told them to go do so weren't they being obedient? What does that have to do with trust? Well, we learn actually, if we look further back in Deuteronomy, when Moses is recounting this story, that something else happened also that we need to take into consideration. Let's pick up in verse 19 of chapter 1. "Then we set out from Horeb and went through all that great and terrifying wilderness that you saw on the way to the hill country of the Amorites, as Yahweh our God commanded us, and we came to Kadesh Barnea. And I said to you, you have come to the hill country of the Amorites, which Yahweh our God has given us. See, Yahweh your God has set the land before you. Go up, take possession, as Yahweh the God of your father has told you. Do not fear or be dismayed." So when we look at it from this way, we find a backstory where God has told them to go up and take the land because it's the promised land, and the command was, 1, go up and take it, and do not be afraid. And we learned both of those things they hesitated on. They feared, and they didn't really go up and take it immediately. So instead, he says, this is what happened. "Then all of you came near me and said, let us send men before us, that we may explore the land for us and bring us word again of the way by which we must go up and the cities into which we have come. The thing seemed good to me, and I took 12 men from you, 1 from each tribe." You see, they were thinking, let's go again, let's get word again, let's check it out to be sure. When God told them, look, I need you to go up, don't be afraid, what you need to be sure about, be sure in my promise. This is where they faltered in thinking, I need to trust in my own understanding and lean on my own understanding, and I need to feel better about it before I move forward. Has this ever happened in your life? God has called you. He's telling you, this is where I need you to be in your spirit. Have peace on this matter. Have clarity on this issue. Or move forward in this way in your career, in your family, or with something I put in your heart. But because of our own fear, we hesitate. We find other reasons to make it better or more palpable for us before we move forward. This caused great problems, as you know the story. So they came back bringing fruits, and it is fruitful, it has these things, but there are people there. And these people are great. They look like giants. I don't know if we can defeat them. 10 out of the 12 spies were very faithless and gave what they called a bad report. This report spread throughout the whole community, causing them to be fearful and saying, what have we done? Oh my goodness, we can't do this. Long story short, none of them were able to enter the promised land with those 2, Joshua and Caleb, who were faithful. Their whole trajectory was changed because they did not trust God at this point and simply go up and take possession of the land and do not be afraid of it. I wonder how many blessings I've missed out on. I wonder how many blessings you've missed out on. And I don't want to miss any more because I am faithless or I don't trust God in those moments because it doesn't make sense to my head. So this is what happened to them. And now we have to ask ourselves, do we trust God? Do you trust God? Because again, as I mentioned before, if you don't trust God, nothing else matters. You can continue to show up to all the functions, you can continue to do all the religious activities, but in the end, that's all it will be, religion. So let's examine ourselves, because we really do need to take a test. Look, just because you've gone to church or had a spiritual experience, you've been baptized or you've said a prayer and all these other things doesn't matter, because you still have to examine yourself in the moment and ask yourself this question: do I trust God? Do I trust God with my family? Do I trust Him with my education? Do I trust Him with my career and my life and where I'm going? Or have I taken things in my own hands? And we're going to look at some things that will decide and kind of test us to see if we've gone one way or the other. And none of us are perfect, right? But we want to make sure we're striving to have this heart. You see, examining yourself is not a new concept. We see Paul talk about it in 2 Corinthians 13. Examine yourself to see what? Whether you are in the faith. What do you mean, whether I'm in the faith? Look, he's talking to believers. And he says, whether I'm in the faith. Can you imagine how offended many would get? Maybe some of you listening to this are listening like, oh, please, this is for those people. This is not for me. Remember, he's talking to believers saying, see whether or not you are in the faith. See, the assumption is always that I'm in the faith. I just need to grow a little bit and do this. Well, let's be in the faith first before we talk about growing. Test yourselves, he continues. Or do you not know, or do you not realize this about yourselves, that Yeshua the Messiah is in you, unless indeed you fail to meet the test? You see, Yeshua, often called Jesus, is in you unless you fail the test. What do you mean? Unless I fail the test? I'm passing the test. I've been here. My parents have been here. I've always been trying to pray and do. He says, no, there's a test you have to overcome. You see, by profession, I'm a teacher and I understand tests. You can raise your hand and answer all the questions correctly. You can turn in all the homework assignments and sit diligently in your seat. But unless you're able to pass that test, you cannot move forward, because there's a test that we still have to endure, a test that will still show us whether or not we are trusting God. Are you passing that test? Well, if you look at some of the tenements of someone who is faithful, there's a difference between someone who's not, and I'd like to look at that. If you look in the dictionary, here's how you define trust: as a firm belief in the reliability, truth, ability, or strength of someone or something. Matter of fact, if you looked at the word in Hebrew, it's the idea of someone leaning on a staff or putting all their weight on something or someone. That's trust. Not having some of their weight, or 50% here and 50% there just in case. It's this idea of full faith and trust, and I'm saying, I know you got it. As a matter of fact, the person who does trust says, I see, then I believe, as opposed to I believe if you show me. Matter of fact, here are some of the things that you'll notice for someone who says, I got it backwards. I believe already and I see, is the person who's faithful. The person who struggles to trust says, if I see, then I believe. And they're full of anxiety, stress, so over-calculating things, overly concerned with being safe, driven by science and statistics, inability to correctly prioritize, and unable to inspire. It's hard to inspire others to be faithful and trust God when you yourself are struggling. When you're always calculating, when you're wondering, how is this going to measure up? Yes, I know what the Bible says. You say to yourself, but show me the numbers. Show me how this works. Let me count the army. Let me see, is this really going to come to fruition? Look, I don't understand how something that's going on that's so violent in my family, so violent in my life, so terrible in my career, such atrocities around me. How is this going to work out? Well, that's the best time to trust, because you understand that the word trust does not exist unless something terrible is happening. Because who can trust in good situations? Everyone's trusting then, right? I trusted, because everything's good. But when something is challenging, when times are dark, when you turn the lights off and everything's black, then your trust is tested. How are you doing in that time? Are you characteristically stressed out and anxious? Are you worried? If these are your typical feelings, then you have to say to yourself, I need some help in my trust. And I'll be first to raise my hand to say that I have struggled in this area. I have struggled significantly thinking, who else has gone through this? Is terrible. How can this be? How can this ever work out to be right? But God says, trust me. And I want to share with us 3 things that we can do to help us grow in that trust, as opposed to having a peaceful heart. See, the one who does trust is full of peace, long-suffering, and patience. Why? Because they're saying to themselves, at the end of this, God is going to work it out. I promise, I don't know how it's going to work, but that scripture is true. Romans 8:28. He works for the good of those who love him. He did it in my life as a child. I can look back and say, wow, so many terrible things. This is challenging. Hey, I came through just fine. What about my kids? My kids shouldn't have to go through that. And he's full of stress and anxiety. Look at the world. Trust God. Trust God. Those words can be so comforting and yet so convicting at the same time, depending on where we are. Individuals who do trust seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, correctly prioritizes matters. Why? Because they're able to see it, not let their emotions get so involved as everything is the same. Everything becomes urgent. They say, no, I know what's right and what's wrong. Matter of fact, Yahshua himself was able to leave cities of people unhealed. In Mark chapter 1, it says we need to go somewhere else. Why? Because I can prioritize correctly. I've prayed about it. I have peace in my spirit. I know what I need to do because I trust the Father who I'm watching. He's able to cast a vision and to inspire people because they say, what are you doing? How can you move with such wisdom, with such peace, with such certainty, even though things don't make sense? Because I trust that Yahweh is going to work it out. I want us to have this attitude. So I want to leave you 3 tips to trust in Yahweh. The first one is count your blessings. I love this one. In Deuteronomy 6, it says, and when Yahweh your God brings you into the land that he swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give you with great and good cities that you did not build, and houses full of all good things that you did not fill, and cisterns that you did not dig, and vineyards and olive trees that you did not plant. And when you eat and are full, then take care lest you forget Yahweh, who brought you out of the land in Egypt, out of the house of slavery. Look at me. I need us to remember and count the blessings. Look, there's fruit that we're eating from seeds that you never planted. There's health that you have in your bones and your body. There's clothes on your back from people who've been praying for you. You have no idea who prayed for you. God has saved you from so many things that you can't even imagine. You can't even begin to thank him for it because you'll never see him. Look, as a father of 4, there's so many things I've done for my kids and trying to protect them and they'll never understand that. Count your blessings, because the fruits that you have right now, even the fact that you can watch or listen to this video, is a fruit in itself. Count your blessings. You're reaping that which you have not sown, which you have not put in the ground for, which you're eating the harvest of, and that should make you grateful. Number 2, remember that he's more than able. This gets me excited because Ephesians 3:20, we've quoted many times. Now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than we can ask or imagine. Let's just camp out on that thought today. Chew on that idea that he can do immeasurably more than you can even imagine. Now try to imagine something that's unimaginable. Try to imagine something that is going to stretch him a little bit further. It says, I can do more than you can even think about. You can even think about. It just boggles our mind to do that. I can do way more than that. So don't think that your problem is that big. In Job 38, he says, where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Where were you when I was putting it all together? And I put this picture up because look at that foundation. Look at the earth. Look at the stars. He says, I put that in place. And where's your problem in the midst of all this? Right now, the problem that you're struggling with, the thing that you're stressed out on about how I'm going to get the money for this, or what about my health in this place? What about the relationships here that I'm struggling so? He says, where is your problem in all of this? Look, I'm not trying to minimize and make fun or in any way what our issues are, but man, it's so healthy to be able to take a good perspective and look back and say, God is able. Trust me, he's able. Sometimes I just have to sing that song. I think it's Smokey Norfolk. God is able. You just have to sing to yourself and remind yourself that he's able. And the scriptures tell us he's more than able to handle your small issue. Because if I looked at the planet right now and had to circle my issue, I would have a hard time putting a dot that would even take up the issues that I'm having at the moment. And yes, every day has enough trouble of its own. So we do have them, but they're small compared to the power of Yahweh. So number 2, guys, please trust that he's able. He has done it. Count your blessings. He is doing it. He still can do it. He's more than able to take care of that. Yes, it may take some time. Yes, it won't make sense to your mind. It won't feel good all the time, but trust him. What else can you do anyway? We have so little the power to change anything else. All I can do is trust him and celebrate at the end of when he does come through. Lastly, I need us to go all in. Proverbs 3:5, it says, trust in Yahweh with what? With all your heart. And do not lean on your own understanding. All of your heart. Do not play your hokey pokey with God where you put your right leg in, your right leg out, your left. We can't play like that. We put our whole selves in. He says, that's what I want. That's what I need you to do if you're going to see the blessings come from me. And you're going to start fully trusting. You can't just play around with it. Go ahead and go all in. Even in talking about tithes, you can see that same spirit. He says in Malachi, bring the full tithe. Give me all of it. Give me all of it into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house, and thereby put me to the test, says Yahweh of hosts, if I will not open the doors of heaven for you and pour down for you a blessing until there is no more room. Test me. Give me everything that I'm supposed to have. Give me the best of your fruits. Give me the best of your income. Give me the best of your time. Stop giving me these leftovers. These little scriptures you're reading as a snack. I need you to eat and take in my whole word as the bread of life. And stop throwing me scraps and snacks. And you doing all this little bit thinking you're supposed to get the full window, open it up and pouring down. He says, no, bring in the full tide, please. Bring in the full tide of your money. Bring in the full tide of your time. Look, I'm not even, I believe he's talking about the money in today's time about this 10%. But you know in your spirit what you need to be given. In your time, in your money, in your sacrifice. And you hold him back. He says, look, I want to bless you. But if you truly want to learn to trust me, test me in this. Give me it all. Proverbs 3:9 says, honor Yahweh with your wealth and with your first fruits of all your labor. Then your barns will be filled with plenty and your vats will be bursting with wine. You notice how our going all in our trust, you going all in your trust, then it allows him to open up and bless you in an amazing way. Like, I know sometimes I wanted to do it too, and I've seen so many people do it. I've done it. We want to say, look, let me try, then I'll buy, right? Because we've gotten conditioned. I've gone to the Costco's and to the supermarkets of the world, and I've tried this and I've tasted this, and I said, that don't taste too good, that don't work. And the ones I like, I'll go ahead and buy. He says, no, it don't work like that with me. There's no try, then buy. You're going to have to go all in. You're going to have to buy right up front. I'm promising you this. Trust me all in. I promise that you'll see the blessings. Too many people I've known have left the faith after they've tried him for a week, tried him for 6 months or a year. It says, look, I remember one friend of mine said, look, he just flat out says he's not giving me what I want. I was supposed to have a career here and a relationship here, and this is supposed to be this way, as if he was a genie in a bottle that promised him something that he didn't fulfill. Be careful, guys. He's not your genie. He doesn't owe us anything. He's laid down his life and given us way more than we deserve. We owe him everything. Whatever he gives us is topping. Whatever he gives us is extra on the cake. But he says, look, I still will open up the windows of heaven for you if you would trust me. Guys, I love you. May Yahweh bless you. And remember these 3 things as you go on for today. To trust him. To think about counting the blessings and say, look what he's already done. To think about he's way more than able to do it. And I need to go all in if I'm going to trust him seriously. I don't know what your situation is, but I know 100% that we need to trust God in that situation right now that you don't want to let go of. Trust him in that situation. Trust him. What does that mean and look like? I believe your spirit is telling you, you know what we're holding on to. Trust him that he can give you the energy to get up early. Trust him that he's going to provide the money. Don't let your anxiety and stress take over you and Satan try to have an opportunity there. I know you will, and may Yahweh bless you and your family. Thank you.